We have now interrupted your regularly scheduled programming to bring you.
And thank you for joining us again for another episode of The Warheads. I am Apocalypto Joe.
And I'm Roscoe Brown.
And as usual, we want to remind you to like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell notification so you get our shows when they are first released. As it is, we started the show off with a very interesting video from Cardi B, wouldn't you say, Roscoe?
Yeah, it was all right, but we'll talk about that later.
All right, that's fair enough. To start the show, we want to talk about the presumption of innocence. You know, recently in the news, James Franco, the actor, writer, producer, you know him from movies like Pineapple Express. He's been in a few movies. The Interview, I know that movie got a lot of criticism from North Korea because of the subject matter a few years back.
He was in Oz, the Wizard of Oz remake thingy.
He's been in quite a few films. But recently, James Franco agrees to pay a $2.2 million fee to settle a sexual misconduct and fraud lawsuit. However, Mr. Franco maintains his innocence. So I wanted to ask you, Roscoe, why would somebody maintain their innocence even though they're ready to break bread with their accusers?
That's interesting. But it's pretty simple too. I think really it's a matter of not muddying up their name for everybody to see, in front of everybody, for the world to see, basically. But it has a lot to do with that. It's easier to just pay off this little sum as opposed to going through having to pay all these extravagant lawyer fees, just to go through the whole stress and just to go through the whole stress of all this stuff. I think is a lot of the reason why people would just rather just pay off a little bit and, like I said, not to have their name be further besmudged, if you will.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm gonna put the article in the description of the video so people can read it themselves. But I want to transition, since we're talking about the presumption of innocence. Now, this is legal terminology, so I'll just read what it is for the sake of the show. It says the presumption of innocence is anyone charged with a criminal offense is presumed to be innocent till proven guilty. The prosecution must prove guilt. The defense does not need to establish innocence. Now, I bring all this up because, as we know, recently, just this past Thursday, Mr. Bill Cosby was released from prison. It wasn't federal prison. He was released from prison because of an overturned judgment of his sexual misconduct case in the state of Pennsylvania. The thing of it is, let me ask you, Roscoe, did you read any part of the deposition?
Well, I was able to go over just a little bit of it because there was a lot of it to go over apparently. But just going over little pieces. I know there was some stuff in it about referring to the drugs that Bill gave her, which was I believe 3 pills, which she was consenting in that whole deal. Because when he offered, she took them. and it just was what it was. But yeah, she took these pills. Any sex between them was consensual. Yeah, and so for her to go and cry wolf after all these years just seems kind of crazy to me, because everything in the deposition would kind of lead you to believe that there's no evidence, and there wasn't, in the deposition, there wasn't any evidence that would lead you to believe that there was any indiscrepancies on his behalf. They weren't able to get any corroborating evidence or anything like that from anybody else. So yeah, it just was what it was, and it led to Bill being a free man, basically.
Right. What I thought was interesting when I went over the deposition is how when he offered her the pills, he was quick to say that these pills are your friends.
Something to make you a little happy. As we doing what we doing. Nobody knows what we're doing.
But here's the other part. She carried on that relationship for a long time after the night in question.
Exactly.
Bill has maintained his innocence and said they had a consensual sexual relationship. When you read the deposition, you can see by her own admission, she kept going to him because she wanted to be in broadcasting. And she said even after that night, she continued to look at him as a mentor and somebody who could help her break into the industry to be a broadcaster. So I think all that is very, very interesting for this very fact. This is a case of he say, she say. Right. And when you're dealing with he say, she say, once again, going back to the presumption of innocence, he's the one being accused. He doesn't have to prove his innocence. It's on her and her attorney to prove that he's guilty. Exactly. So with that being the case, bro, I've heard people talk about how all these women accusing Bill can't be wrong. Do you think there's any validity to that at all, that statement?
No. For anyone who would say that these women can't be wrong, and there's just so many of them. One, the fact that they were all represented by the same attorney, the same law firm rather, would key off my spider sense anyway. But there's that. But these women who they and there was a lot of them, but there's also the case that they all decided to speak at the same time. Like none of these women, because these situations and these cases go back to the 60s. So you mean to tell me that during that decade, nobody said nothing? During the 70s, nobody said nothing. 80s, 90s, a couple of more decades after the fact, and still nobody said nothing up until last year, a year or so ago. You know what I mean? So yeah, I just think it's very, very coincidental. And like I said, it just gets my spider sense. My Peter tingle goes when I hear about this. But yeah, it's ridiculous, man.
Right. And I'm not saying Bill's innocent. I'm not saying that these women are necessarily just trying to go in for the money. What I'm saying is nobody knows. This is a case of he say, she say. As far as the argument is concerned, where all these women can't be wrong, there have been conspiracies where everybody was in collusion with the conspiracy. I want to draw your attention to the crack epidemic. Oliver North, Fall Guy, Ronald Reagan, Bush. You got to think George Bush Sr. Let me be more specific. It was the dad. It was the dad.
Right.
They had aides, assistants, everybody who was in collusion with that undercover Contra war, where they were using Black people, melanin-rich people in the United States, and our pain and our suffering locking up our fathers and our uncles and brothers and so on and so forth, nephews, breaking up families to fund their war with the Contras. And so if it wasn't for a gumshoe by the name of Gary Webb, all that stuff would have went unheralded in the ears and in the ether of the news or whatsoever. So conspiracies do exist, have existed. They just so happen to have the lid popped off of some. A lot of them you never see come to light. But there are plenty of conspiracies in the world. And like Roscoe brought out, these women, most of them are represented by Gloria Allred. She's on the record as being an attorney that goes on a witch hunt. So to say that all these women can't be wrong, no, that's an inaccurate statement, because there are plenty of documented conspiracies where everybody was in collusion with the conspiracy. That being said, I don't want to focus too much on Bill Cosby because he's maintained his innocence. I want to shift the focus.
Okay.
At the beginning of our show, we played a video of Cardi B admitting to drugging men and robbing them. But before we get to her, have you ever heard of the actor Stephen Collins, Roscoe?
Yeah, I have. It's the guy who plays the minister or whatever it is, the preacher on that one show with his family. What is that, Seventh Heaven?
Yes.
Yeah. See, I didn't think I would remember, but yeah, I remember this guy.
Okay. Well, Stephen Collins, he is actually on the record as admitting to sexually abusing 3 underage girls. Now, I bring this up because he has admitted guilt. Nobody's sitting up here putting a witch hunt together to go after this man. Nobody has taken the time to sit up here and be like, yeah, he pretended like he was a minister. A minister did some nonsense to me when I was younger. Nobody's going after this man. He's basically, though he's not acting anymore, but he still has his freedom. Mr. Cosby spent almost 3 years in prison over something that he's maintained his innocence for since day one. So can I ask you, Roscoe, why wouldn't the media and their witch hunt brigade go after someone like Stephen Collins, in your opinion?
I'm going to use one word. Racism. Racism. Yes. No, it's obvious, man. Dude, there's always been a disparaging difference in the playing field, so yeah, of course, race plays a big part in this. And this is something that white men, especially in Hollywood, man, they've been able to get away with forever in that industry. And only up until recently where we've come into the cancel culture and Me Too and all this stuff, has this stuff become taboo now, so yeah, a lot of these guys who were committing all these atrocities for however many decades have now been allowed to kind of go off into the sunset, if you will. And like you said, they still have their freedom, while you'll have guys who look like me and you, and they commit the same acts, and we have Bill Cosby situation or an R. Kelly situation, so yeah, no, it's white men have done the same things that these guys have done, and for some odd reason they're walking and we're not. So
yeah, I think it is interesting how many more powerful men are guilty of these same crimes, yet it's melanin rich men who become the face of these atrocities. Not saying that they're innocent, not saying that they're guilty. We're not here to sit up here and pass any judgment. We're just giving our opinion. However, somebody like Stephen Collins, go after his ass. make a concerted effort to go after someone who has actually admitted guilt. You know, Roscoe, all this reminds me of an interview that took place the other day between Mark Lamont Hill and Judge Joe Brown. But in the aftermath, they took to Twitter. And I'm going to read these tweets. Mark Lamont said, he said, last night I interviewed Judge Joe Brown. I was disappointed and disgusted by his misogyny and apologies for rape culture. I wish I'd ended the interview sooner. Judge Joe Brown goes on to say himself in another tweet. He says, misogyny and apologies for rape culture. Young sir, you were way out of your league and I controlled the narrative. You advocate feminist emotionalism, ignorance of the law, and mob rule, the cause of so many Black deaths. Man up and stop letting yourself be used by our enemies. So he's basically calling this man, Mark Lamont Hill, a puppet.
Wow.
But Bill Cosby follows up and says, he said, Judge Joe Brown ripped the skin off of Mark Lamont Hill on his own show. Oh boy, that must have really hurt. Thank you, Judge Joe, for calling out mainstream media and explaining the law. But I think it's interesting.
That's amazing. You know what, bro? That reminds me of a quote from Malcolm X about the media that I actually feel is appropriate for the moment right now, and I want to read that off right now. It states, the media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have the power to make the innocent guilty and to make the guilty innocent. They control the minds of the masses.
Right. Puppets.
Yeah. So, good old the good old media of all forms, you know. But it was funny how Bill went on to support, you know, Judge Brown, you know. So I just thought a little comical back and forth back there.
Right, and that is a beautiful quote from Malik El-Haj Shabazz, better known as Malcolm X. But where Judge Joe Brown hits the high note is basically calling Mark Lamont Hill a puppet for the mainstream media. Interestingly enough, Black News Network, who Mark Lamont Hill works for, is ran by a Caucasian man by the name of Bob Brillante. I'll just leave it there. Which brings us to why we're here. Miss Cardi B, the Boricua rapper, as they call her. The Blood, she's also an admitted gangbanger. She's on the record, as you can see from the video that we played at the beginning of the show, to drugging and robbing people. She's admitted to this. But as you can see in the video, she goes into this tirade about nobody ever gave her anything. No, they never gave it to you, but you for damn sure took it. Nobody's ever gave her anything. And then the manipulation kicks in as the tears start to fall. Oh my God, you know, the world is so bad for me, poor little me. Very solipsistic and narcissistic. But what's your take on this video? And once again, how the public and their double standards. That's what I want to talk about. The public's double standard. Here's a Caucasian male and a Puerto Rican woman. I don't know what to call her. I really don't. So I'm just saying Puerto Rican woman, and how the public has failed to go after these individuals, even though they have admitted to doing something so heinous.
Yeah, no, it just speaks to the systematic agenda, you know, against Black males out here, and how, you know, they create the imbalance by allowing, you know, for others to create atrocities where they'll pin us to the ground for those same things, whether whether it be, any sexual deviant conduct, or whether it be, drugs, any of that kind of stuff. There's a different way that some of these celebrities, some of these people of different colors from us, even the women in certain situations, get treated differently in basically the same kind of situations, so there's some double standards that do exist. And I think, just given the situations, will determine how the double standard goes, I guess. But yeah, no, it's just one of those things that happens in our culture, our society as a whole, is that we just get these things happening and this kind of imbalance going.
Yeah, I'll say this. What I think is interesting is even after she admitted this, the Democratic Party was still using Cardi B as a means to get out the vote. I don't care if these things happened before she acquired fame. When has that ever mattered? A crime is a crime. I don't know what the statutes of limitations are on drugging people and robbing them, but once you admit to that, the cancel culture that tries to sit up here and counsel other men of color, even some white men, even though I don't think it's to the same degree. I really don't. Nowhere near. She should never be tapped. But I'm going to give my own personal opinion as to why the media gives her a pass. This is a woman who preaches a message that's totally antithetical to what she actually lives. She's married, but she preaches to young, urban inner city women to live a thought life, to sit up here and be loose. And as we know, when you live a loose lifestyle as a woman, very few men that are worth anything are going to look at you as a viable candidate to say, hey, that's wifey over there. It's destructive. It brings about hot girl summers. What happens at the end of hot girl summer? You got a baby in the bun in a lot of instances. You don't even know who the daddy is, STDs, emotional distress. It's so much that goes on with the lyrics from somebody like Cardi B. And because she's preaching a message really of self-destruction, if you really listen to her music, is totally against what hip hop was originally created for. The acronym for hip hop originally meant higher infinite power, helping our people. So I want to ask you, bro, how does rapping about your WAP help our people? How does it create higher infinite power? We know that the snake, the Kundalini energy, coils upwards from the root to the crown. She stays in the root chakra. She's not trying to elevate anybody to be better. So I don't know. Before we get out of here, I need your take on this obvious media double standard and a double standard from cancel culture. Whoever these people are, I don't know whoever you cancel culture people are, come in the comments and give us your opinion. But is it anything else you want to add to this, bro?
No, I think we pretty much said it all. Like you said, Me Too and the cancel culture has gotten out of control, but also there's an imbalance that we're seeing and that we're noticing big time, because like you said, we'll have instances where somebody like this lady, she's able to announce to the world that, hey, I can do this, that, and the other. And, you can, if me or you were to do this exact same thing, they be screaming for us to be put under the jail, but that's just the world that we live in right now. Some people can get away with things, and another person does the same thing and probably won't see the light of days.
Okay, so before we go, I'll say this. Judge everybody by the same measuring stick. go after people who are admitted predators, because Stephen Collins and Cardi B and people like them are predators. I don't care what kind of fame they have, what kind of skin color they have for the protection, because we live in an America that was built for white men. I don't care. Judge everybody by the same measuring stick if you're going to play this game, and get some proof. You know, that's all I got to say. Stop being hypocrites. Stop having a double standard. You know, judge people the same way you would want to be judged in the same situation. I've been falsely accused. I know how it feels for somebody to say that you did something that you actually didn't do, and it doesn't feel good. And I maintain my innocence on everything because I didn't do anything. That being said, we're not trying to shape anybody's opinion. We're just trying to put the information out there. If you want to continue to think that Bill Cosby is guilty, have right at it. Other than that, like, comment, subscribe. If you are going to comment, give us your hate and your vitriol. Tell us how much you hate the Warheads, because we're not trying to throw another brother under the bus who's maintained his innocence in a he say, she say case. Other than that, Warheads out.
I know if y'all hating, y'all better put the Warheads in all caps, though.